Welcome to Barrier Breakers, a podcast celebrating resilience and triumph over adversities. Expect raw, honest conversations filled with practical advice and life lessons. Now on to today's episode. Welcome back to episode 18 of Barrier Breakers.
18,
friend. We're almost at 20.
We've definitely passed the 7-hour rule for some people. Getting to know, like, and trust us.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about that 7-hour rule. How does it work?
So there's a 7-hour principle that says you have to spend 7 hours with somebody, hearing their voice, or to know, like, and trust them before you will actually, before you will consciously seek them out for advice or decisions or something like that. Mm-hmm. So example, real estate agents, the first time you meet, if it's in a coffee shop or whatever, I don't understand that. So just go with it. So if you meet with them and then you go out, and it's the difference of you riding with them all day, seeing houses, mm-hmm. and then just following them to somewhere, and then hearing your voice. So of course, the more content that you have, the more that you don't have to exert, the more people can spend time with you without actually spending time with you. And then that develops the know, like, and trust over 7-hour period.
Yeah. Well, I feel like the people that listen to our stories know more about us.
I know nothing about anyone that comes in, but anyone that comes to podcasts, they're like, hey, remember that one? No.
Yeah. Yes. Well, today we are going to, I guess, do 45 to an hour. So getting a lot of that 7-hour mark down with Casey Schaffer here, a local barrier breaker.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming
welcome.
all the way from West Knoxville. Like a 13-minute drive.
We all have our crosses to bear.
Yes, Mr. Coming from Georgia.
No.
Just so you guys know, Gentry currently makes a special trip here every Saturday. Well, not every Saturday.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Once a month to come and film in person. So thank you, Gentry, for making that long drive from Georgia.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Hopefully it will be over soon.
Yeah. Prayers. Prayers.
If anyone's listening.
You want to buy a house in Georgia?
Yeah.
On the golf course.
Yep.
Yes, it's a beautiful home. And Casey sitting with us is another industry colleague we have.
All right.
A local barrier breaker. And we're just going to get right into your story, Casey. Take us back and tell us about your childhood.
All right, diving right in. So I was born and raised in southeastern Kentucky, a very religious family, forced to go to church on Sundays. If we didn't, we had to watch it all day on TV. Anytime that we got in trouble, we had to talk about it. So very sheltered. Whenever I was 16, my mom was diagnosed with lung cancer. But from the time that we found out she had cancer, it was August of 2009 we found out, and then she died in January of 2010. So 6 months from the time we found out until she died.
Really fast.
Yeah. Yeah, and hindsight, I knew, I should have known what was happening, but she never told us what was happening. She had stopped her chemo. She didn't tell us. She was slowly dying, but she didn't tell us. So I went to my friend's house, and we were never allowed to go to our friend's house. They always had to come to our house. Yeah. And, that sheltered mom,
Yeah.
Completely. Yeah. So I resonate with that.
I had asked my stepdad, I'm like, Mom's not, responding to me. I think she's sleeping. Can I go to my friend's house? And he's like, yeah, go ahead. It's fine. I'll tell her when she wakes up. So I go to my friend's house, and the next morning, my mom didn't call, which is weird because, if I was at a friend's house, she'd be calling at, 6 a.m., Are you still alive? What's happening? Are you okay? And I didn't hear from her, and then my stepdad called me, and, I answered, and he just said, Casey, she's gone. That's all he said. And find out that I was the first person in the family that he called, and I'm the youngest. So I have 2 older siblings and a younger brother who was 4 at the time. So I had to call my siblings and tell them what happened, and then go to the house, and it was just, a terrible experience. I remember the coroner, carrying her out. It was literally like a scene from a movie. I was screaming. I was
How old were you?
I was 17.
Okay.
So I'm like, Mom, wake up. You have to wake up. And she wasn't waking up. So the friend that I was with, her mom was there with us. She, changed my mom's clothes and stuff before the coroner came. And then the next day I moved out of my house because my stepdad was a great stepdad growing up, but he, and I believe my sister with my whole heart, that he molested her, and my mom didn't believe her. and I can't leave myself there with him. So I left the next day. My sister stayed. My older brother had already moved out, and my little brother was 4. So that was his dad. So he stayed with him.
Yeah.
And then fast forward a year and a half after her death. Well, let me back up a little bit. I struggled so bad with my mom's death that I had to be put on blood pressure medication because the nightmares were so intense.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I was self-harming because, you want to get rid of that emotional pain. You don't do anything, so you resort to physical pain. And the girl's house that I stayed at when my mom died, I went to live with them. And she woke me up in the middle of the night, and she took me to the hospital. And she didn't tell anybody where I was at, but she had committed me to the psychiatric ward.
Wow.
And I was there for 10 days, and nobody knew where I was at. And I'm like, well, guess I'm here for the long haul.
Yeah. When you say self-harming, were you cutting?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And my friends had found out because they had seen it, and they had told her. But the fact that nobody knew where I was what scared me the most. And really, I really did need the help. Like, looking back, like, I was a child. Like, I didn't know how to handle my emotions well.
Sure.
And so fast forward past that, when a year and a half after my mom died, I find out that I'm pregnant. And it was the summer after I graduated high school. So it was like 2 weeks before I was supposed to move into the college dorms. And I was in denial. I was like, there's no way I'm pregnant. I'm not taking a test because it's not, So I was 9 weeks along when I found out because I'm like, there's no way.
Yeah.
No,
don't acknowledge
not
it.
Not me.
Yeah.
Couldn't be.
No,
They
absolutely not. Yeah. And so I took the test. I threw it in the trash can because I didn't wait the whole 2 minutes. I'm like, it's negative. Okay, bye. And then I went back like an hour later. I'm like, maybe I should look at that again. And it was positive. And like, I had a breakdown. I'm like, I'm 18 years old. I'm going to have a baby. Like, what am I going to do with this thing?
Yeah.
So then I called my stepdad because I didn't know who else to call. And I was like, hey, I think I'm pregnant. I need help. And so he took me to the family doctor, and he confirmed I was pregnant. And then he handed me an abortion clinic card. And he's like, I've known your family your entire life. This is the best thing for you. And so I took it, and I kept it for a long time. But then I'm like, well, I'm already 9 weeks through this. Like, that's like past the point where morally I'm okay with it. So like, we're going to keep it. We're going to keep this baby. And so I literally like texted Aiden's dad. I'm pregnant. Like, I couldn't tell him to his face. Like, he was a stranger, basically. Like, we hadn't known each other but like 2 months. Like, it was, So I was homeless during the entire time that I was pregnant. I tried to go live with my stepdad. He would lock me out of the house in the snow and pretend like he couldn't hear me, but I could see him in the window. So I like couch hop from place to place. And so eventually, like 3 weeks before Aiden was born, we finally got into like assisted living, like, like subsidized rent.
Sure.
And so we moved in there. We had Aiden, and then maybe 8 months later, you go to the doctor, and they're like, you need to check like these boxes. Like, is he like responding to your name? Like, is he like crawling, or like, is he trying new foods? And like, I can't check these boxes because he's not doing these things. And so I tried to tell my doctor, the same doctor that gave me the abortion clinic card. I said, I think something's wrong with my child. He's like, no, it's just because you're a young mom, you don't know what's happening. Like, he's just delayed. And I was like, there's something wrong with him. And so I like went to the health department for his shots, and I was like, he's delayed. So they sent someone to the house like to work with him to like catch him up, like early intervention. And she's like, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but your son, I think he has autism. And so I'm like, well, you're wrong. My kid's perfect. He's just like delayed. And so I was in denial for a long time. My ex-mother-in-law and she and I were at each other's throats because she's like, he has it. I'm like, no, he doesn't. Like, I can't accept this. And so I finally went back to the doctor, and I said, I don't care what you say, but I need to have him tested. So we waited a year to have him tested for autism. So we drive all the way to Louisville, Kentucky to go to the Weisskopf Center. We were there 5 minutes. They're like, yeah, he has autism. And so like, we didn't talk to each other the whole way home. Like, we cried. We're like, what are we going to do? Like, and he got to the point where he was having like meltdowns. Like, we couldn't like help him.
He was 2 at this point?
Yeah. And we just felt completely helpless. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I don't have family that can lean on for this. Like, what do we do? So we grunted through it. I continued college even though I found out that I was pregnant. I went through college. I took Aiden with me to classes. Like, I graduated on my mom's birthday.
Wow.
Yeah, so Aiden was there. I have pictures of me holding Aiden, and I graduated college, the first in my family to ever graduate college.
Come on.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I was also the first in my family to graduate, and I've had friends that got pregnant while they were in college, sophomore, junior year. Some of them stayed, toughed it out, and, some of them delayed their schooling to have their kids. But to find out you're pregnant 2 weeks before entering your freshman year.
Yeah, they're like, you can still live in the dorms. You just can't sleep on the top bunk. And then it was a very conservative Baptist college, and they're like, I mean, the irony.
We don't mean the irony.
No,
That's so funny.
So, like,
Yeah. And
that's
rumor had it, like, before I had started, like, there was rumors that if you were, gay or pregnant, they would kick you out.
Yeah.
So I was very scared to go to the dean and be like, hey, I'm pregnant. Like, what can I do? What are my options?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, we graduated college. I say we because me and Aiden, my buddy, we made it through.
Yeah.
And my mom always told me to go to college and do something that you love. Well, here I am with a public health degree in biology because I wanted to be a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And then, my first job in Tennessee was mortgage collections because I was at the student center and I saw they'll take
anyone.
Yeah. You just had to have a degree. They didn't care what it was. I'm like, I'm sold. That's my first growing up job because we struggled so much. I've stolen diapers and formula because I couldn't take care of my child. Okay. And we were on government help the entire time. So to feel like, okay, we made it. We graduated college. We're going to move to Knoxville. We're going to, have like a big girl job. Like, we'll be fine. Well, Aiden's dad and I we got married, and it was fine. And then he didn't want to move to Knoxville. He had like a minimum wage job in Kentucky. He didn't want to leave that job because he liked the people he worked with. I'm like, well, I'm taking him. We're going to go. So like, I drove from Kentucky to Knoxville on my first day of work. I'm like, you're not stopping me from taking this job because I'm not staying in this cycle for my entire life. And that was the day he took me seriously. And he's like, okay, fine. So we went and found like
that was the day he took me.
Yeah. And so we found like a little apartment in Lake City, and it was like $400 a month for
Lake
rent.
City, yeah.
That's where his mom lived at the time. And then, his dad developed a weed addiction, and I don't have a problem with it. The problem came to me when he would spend all of our money on it.
Yeah.
And I couldn't afford, diapers or groceries because he was spending our money on weed. So, I ended up getting divorced, and we went our separate ways. I felt extreme guilt for the divorce. I'm like, I asked for it, so I'm taking the child. I'm leaving you with everything we have. I'll take all of our debt. You can have everything in the bank account except for enough to get me through for 2 weeks until I get paid again. Mm-hmm. So we up and left. I moved into a friend's basement and lived with her for a couple months. And then Aiden and I moved into a studio apartment, and we shared a bed for a year. And it was like 400 square feet. It was tiny. And, he was so small that he wouldn't know the difference, like,
yeah.
Like, he's just like, I'm hanging out with my mom. Like, it's not like we're in a tiny apartment. Like,
Yeah.
Everyone else has something big. Because Aiden's blessing is that he doesn't notice that he's different. Like, he thinks that he's like his own little world. Like, like, I love that he doesn't realize that he's different. And that may change one day, but he still doesn't to this day. He's 12 almost. He doesn't know he's different. And that to me is like the greatest thing ever. And it's just...
So you did all of this. You graduated college with an autistic son.
Mm-hmm.
You moved out, divorced your husband, moved out on your own, started raising your child. Was your ex helping some with Aiden?
So we had 50-50 arrangements at that time.
Okay.
He stayed in Lake City in that apartment with his dad, and I moved to Knoxville to be closer to like better schools because I'd heard Knoxville had better schools than Anderson County. So we moved to Knoxville, and we had like on and off, like the schedule with Aiden was fine. He had a hard time adjusting because, autistic kids are very like routine oriented. So like the first day back from his dad's was always hard because he was adjusting again. And I have a little more like strict schedule. Like we take a bath at the same minute, like down to the second every single day. Like we're very schedule. And his dad's a little more like flexible. Like, oh, you want to stay up till 9:30? Like, that's fine. On a school night, have fun.
And I'm kind of ignorant, to autism and how that works. So I know, so they call it on the spectrum, right?
Yeah.
Is there varying degrees, or with this child that's autistic, is there certain things, like different kinds of autism, I guess, where you notice differences in behavior?
Yeah. So it's called Asperger's. It's a very
Okay.
high functioning version of autism. It's basically like your little genius, like your little savant who's like super great, like the piano or, everything like that. And then Aiden falls in the middle of the spectrum. He is mostly nonverbal. He can't really take care of himself. He can't be left unsupervised. Like, he doesn't understand stranger danger. Like, he would walk out in front of a car if you didn't stop him. So, like, he requires a lot of attention. Um, and then there's like super severe autism, which is like constant meltdowns and like hitting adults and like stuff like that. So like Aiden's not there, but he's kind of in the middle. I understand what he needs because I understand like what he wants. The best way to describe it is he almost sounds like a deaf person talking. So like people don't talk to Aiden, they don't really know what he means, but like if you're around him for a while, you understand what he wants. And there's still times I've taken a video and sent to his teachers and his dad. I'm like, do you know what he's asking for? Because I can't understand. So, like, Aiden will never be able to live on his own. He will never be able to hold a job. So, our plan right now is that we're going to build an apartment in the back of our yard, and he's going to live there so he can have some stability and some independence, but be close enough to home that I can, like, keep an eye on him. So, after the divorce, he finally, like, that was, like, Aiden's dad's defining moment when he kind of grew up a little bit. Like, he got, a grown-up job. Like, he became a pretty good dad. And then fast forward, honestly, to last year, he developed a drinking problem, and he lost his job, car, and housing in 1 week. And we've had Aiden full-time since then. And Aiden doesn't ask for his dad anymore. Like, he's just like, Mom. And when his dad comes to our house to watch him sometimes, instead of getting a babysitter, because it is harder to find a babysitter for Aiden because of his disability. When his dad comes into his room, he says, bye-bye. He doesn't want his dad anymore because he wants Mom. It's like my biggest fears come down to, like, what's going to happen when I die?
Yeah.
Who's going to take care of him? Because I have no family. So that lays heavy on me a lot at night.
Sure.
But, yeah.
I'm sure. And just thinking back to the times we were in college, I mean, I know that was your mom's wish for you.
Yeah.
And I totally understand persevering through hard times because of our parents and their dying wishes. Was there anyone around to really support you? I know you had Aiden's father, but like...
We had Aiden's grandfather, which is on the paternal side. He lived with us, and so he would take care of like Aiden during the day sometimes whenever we were like in class or something. I worked 2 full-time jobs on the weekend, and I worked on campus. It was constant go, 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 go. And I had such a desire to make my mom proud.
Yeah.
And then, like, and it still struggles today. Like, my boss, like, I want to make her proud because that mom, like, want to make like a mother figure proud of me. Like, I have been diagnosed with PTSD by multiple doctors just because of like being the first one to say that my mom was dead. Like, picking out her clothes that she had to wear to her funeral, and we couldn't afford anyone to cover her grave, so me and my stepdad covered her grave after she was buried. So like, I shouldn't have had to do that. I was a child. Like, why put that burden on me? Like, why not call my older brother, who's 8 years older than me?
Oh, wow.
Tell
Yeah.
him.
It's 25. Yeah.
And instead you tell me. Like, even my sister is 13 months older than me. Like, why not call her? Like, why call me? And I just can't. I can't figure that out. But I never had contact with my stepdad after Aiden was really born. He like developed also a drinking problem. Like, the way my brother was raised, I'm like, that's not how my mom would have raised us. Like, I can't believe, like, this is not the person that my mom was married to, and I don't know who you are. But it's a lot going on in our lives. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So you guys have Aiden now. What, being in Knox County, I have friends who teach in Blount County, and they are in those special classrooms. How has it been? Do you have a community here in Knox County where Aiden has friends that are also special?
Yeah, he has one particular little friend who has Down syndrome, and Aiden loves him. So if Aiden loves you, like he works for hugs. Like that's what Aiden wants. Like I want hugs. I want tickles. Like he's a very happy kid. So he has 2 stepbrothers now. The oldest stepbrother. So we always joke that there's Aiden and Grayson and Hunter. So it's 5, 7. Wait, no, 7, 9, and 11. That the 9-year-old, we joke that he's the big brother because, like, you know, he's like more like mentally aware than Aiden. So we joke like, Grayson, you're the big brother. Like, keep an eye on Aiden.
Yeah.
But Grayson will go out of his way to enter into Aiden's world instead of making Aiden enter into his world. And that's where the difference is. Yeah. Like, Aiden doesn't care about, you know, sports or whatever. But, like, Grayson's like, what's Mickey Mouse doing? And you'll get some reaction from Aiden, you know? So it's like, that's the biggest obstacle is like people think like we need to make autistic children function in our world today. When I disagree with that, I think that we need to enter into their world more. Because they have such an understanding of life. Like they don't care about, you know, politics or, you know, what's going on in the world. They're happy in that moment and they have pure joy that never goes away. And like, that's something that I will always admire from Aiden.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. When I was in college, one of my professors, my stats professor, had Asperger's. And our first class session, I kid you not, he walked in with a Spider-Man mask on. I shared it on Facebook. I'm an idiot 19-year-old at the time. And I had no idea because I never ran into anyone that was on the spectrum. And so smart, but he was like, you guys are a-holes. And I cannot understand emotion very well. And he told us what he had. And so I'm going to wear a mask for most classes because I guess he also couldn't control his face and regulate his emotions very well. But he also wouldn't know if we were being sarcastic and just being, you know, a little rude.
They can't.
Young
like,
adults.
They don't see like, oh, Gentry's smiling. Like he's happy. Like they have to be like, okay, well, someone's crying. That means that they're sad. So I need to react this way. Like it's not like a natural reaction. It's a learned behavior. Like that's just really hard.
Yeah. And that was my first time being around someone. And it's not talked about enough. I think now it's more talked about, but even still, it's not talked about enough about what the kids go through, the parents, the caregivers.
Yeah.
How do you guys find community and just protect your children? And then, like you said, do you have that plan for if something were to happen to you, God forbid, how Aiden would be cared for? Do you guys have like a written out plan for that?
Yes, we do actually. We have a few people lined up we've discussed in depth taking Aiden. We both have life insurance policies that would fund taking care of Aiden. They know how to invest it, to like grow money so that he can be taken care of. It's just, I mean, yeah, it's a lot to think about. The community is great. Like a lot of Aiden's old teachers, I became best friends with. Like one of them moved to Chicago. I still talk to her yearly. Like his teacher from last year, she sends me pictures like still of him. That was from her classroom. Like I've developed like families with these people because it takes a certain heart to love, like, you know, disabled children.
Yeah.
And Aiden was the first child I ever knew that had a disability. Like, and this doesn't run in my family. Like, where did it come from? And I spent a lot of years blaming myself because, you know, you're the mom. Like, you grew the child. Like, how dare my body, like, betray me this way?
Yeah.
And I still have moments where I'm like, it's my fault that he's this way, that his life is hard because of me. And I have to let that go. And it's hard. Like some days are easier and like, okay, well, you know, environment and genetics and all these other things play into it. Like they didn't know what it was back then. I can't blame myself, but you as a mom, like you take that responsibility. Like I grew that person. Like that's my child. So like that's something I struggle with. But I mean, outside of like family, like I don't speak to my siblings. We're completely estranged. They took on the lifestyle that we had growing up. They all gave up all their children. They didn't want them. My sister ended up having a disabled child that was a little more severe than Aiden. She decided one day she couldn't do it anymore and signed off her rights to their dad, and she hasn't talked to them since. And that was like years ago. I'm like, how can we be so close in age and come from the same family but have different values? And I just don't agree with her lifestyle. So I'm like, have a good day.
I understand that. I'm the oldest sibling, and I have 2 younger sisters, and it's very hard to talk about the lives they lead, because it's, for one, it hurts my heart, and it's kind of disappointing. It's very disappointing. Let me not sugarcoat things.
Yeah.
Because we grew up a certain way, and I was hell bent like you on this is not what I deserve. I deserve more, and I'm going to go out there and chase it. So I get that. It's very hard when you are completely different.
I'm the black sheep with the running joke with my friends and family that know, like my siblings and stuff, that I was adopted, had to be adopted. Even though I look just like my sister, had to be adopted. There's no way that we came from the same family. It's just completely different. And I guess it comes to desires. Like, I think my siblings treat our mother's death as the world owes me something. Like, and so they have that victim mentality. And so they just, poor pitiful me, like, I'm just gonna sit around and wait for the world to like give me what I deserve. I'm like, that's not how this works. You don't start living until you let that go and go after what you want, instead of sitting around just twiddling your thumbs waiting for like the sky to fall in your lap.
Yeah,
that's not how life works.
Not at all.
Oh, where to go? The wheels are turning.
Yeah.
The wheels are turning.
Yeah. So you have Aiden, and this, going back to your first job, how did you get into the lending side of things? Because now you are a badass.
Yes.
Always have been, but like career-wise, thriving.
Yeah. So I knew early on that if Aiden had any shot at a decent life, that I had to make good money. So I took that first collections job. I was really good at it, which was ironic because I am very much an introvert. If you like know me in the outside world, I'm like, I could stay at my house, like I could not talk to people and we'd be fine. But I'm like, well, I got to make these phone calls today because these loans won't close themselves, you know?
Yep.
So I did collections for a couple years, and then I went to be a closer. So, you know, they put the title package together, they balance with the title company. So I did that, and they brought me on at MIG to be Parker's specific closer because she is a little bit of a hard ass, and she'll say this about herself, so I don't feel bad. And so they brought me on just to be her closer because nobody else wanted to work with her. I went like above and beyond. Like I was sending like CDs like 8 o'clock at night for her. Like I was putting packages together last minute. Like, let's go. Like, this is fine. Like, it was a great dynamic. And then when COVID hit, she was dying because, I mean, she was a 2-man show at that point, and her business grew so fast that she brought me on to be her assistant. And so I did that during all of COVID. You know, we're still the top grossing team in the country at that point. She's still like the number 2 female originator in the country, like as of last year. She and I did bump heads a lot. Like, you know, you can't put 2 strong-headed women in a room together.
2 powerhouses, no.
Yeah. So we learned the hard way. We butted heads. Like, we avoided each other. I ended up being let go when the mortgage industry like tanked in a year and a half ago. And I'm like, you know what? This is like an eye-opener for me. Like, yes, I was a dick to Parker. Like, this, I needed this to grow. And like, so I went to work on another team. And then Parker like reached back out to me because her clients would reach out to me and they would want something, and I would always send them back to her. Yeah. And she like found that as like a respect thing, because I could have taken them, I could have closed those loans, and she would have never known any different. Sure. But that's not like integrity that I want for my name.
I applaud that.
Yeah. So I sent them back to her. I was like, hey, they reached out, they want something. Like, here you go. Like, let me know if I can do anything. And she and I like started talking one day. I'm like, look, if you ever want like a loan officer on your team, like just let me know, and I would be willing to come back. And she's like, well, how about you start next week? I was like, oh crap, that's like a lot faster than I expected, but yeah, let's go. So that was in July of 2023. And so on her team, our goal is to exceed like all of our numbers for 2024. Like, we're licensed in 35 states. Like, yeah. So we're all parents on the team, so like having kids is fine. Like, they understand, like, I tap out at 4:00 because that's when Aiden gets off the bus. Yeah. And I'll pick back up whenever he gets to bed. But that's the time with my child. So, and everyone's okay with it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And your husband, is he a real estate agent?
Yes, he is.
Okay. Yeah, I was like, I'm pretty sure you guys saw one of my listings.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So when I was Parker's LOA, he was an accountant. And if you know anything about accountants, you know they have personalities. They like to joke, and so they don't have personalities.
I was
They don't
gonna
like
say,
to joke.
I think you mean the
It's-
opposite. Yeah.
So it would like he would make jokes in the office and it would fall like on deaf ears, and like he would like scroll Zillow at night for fun. And I'm like, why don't you get paid to do that? And so I'm like, I'm making enough right now that I can support our household while you go do this.
Yeah.
And so he's like, okay. So like he went and got his license, and so he's been doing that for 2 years, 2.5 years, maybe.
It's all a blur.
Yeah, it
After
really
COVID,
is.
every
It
year
just
is
goes-
like the same.
I still want to say it's 2022.
Yeah.
I tell everyone we're in the 38th month of 2020.
I like that because that's how it feels. It really does. Yeah. So he's out like showing houses and stuff, and then I like being a loan officer because I can stay home with kids whenever he's out showing houses.
Mhm.
Yeah. Just like you guys play and I'll work.
You said kids, so you guys have more than one?
Well, I have Aiden, who's my only biological child, and so he has 2, so we're a blended
Okay.
family.
Mm-hmm.
So he has 2 sons, and then I have Aiden, so all of our kids.
I love that.
And we really get along well. Like his ex, like we have like a group chat, and like we plan, like, you know, you take him this day, you got sports this day, like as long as it's on the calendar, like we're flexible, like we get along great. Like I ask her like questions and stuff, and so I'm lucky that our dynamic is as great as it is.
Sure.
So yeah, it's rare. I think that's really rare.
Very,
Oh, it is.
Very rare.
I've heard horror stories.
Oh yeah.
I've heard horror stories, but I've also heard some exceptions to the rule. And the exceptions to the rule is like, wow. Like I didn't know that was possible. Like trailblazers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's how it should be because that's what the kids deserve, you know?
Yeah.
It is.
Whatever's best for the children at the end of the day should be how adults act, right?
Should.
We got to put our
Should
pettiness
be.
aside, and that's
Should.
hard sometimes.
Yeah.
Pin
Oh, yeah.
in the should.
I'm just so impressed with you, Casey. I mean, gosh, you skipped over, I felt like, what some people would have really stopped on in your childhood stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you were just like, oh, that happened. And I'm like, I get that because, like, oh, that was a chapter. Now we move on to, you know, the more, what's in front of me now is more pertinent.
Yeah.
It's what we're focusing
Yeah,
on.
because I'm 31 now.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like, well, mom died at 17, I got pregnant at 18, had Aiden at 19. You know, like 2021, he was diagnosed with autism. 23, I graduated from college. And like, it was like year after year after year after year, like stuff was happening. Like, I finally feel like, you know, we can breathe now that, knock on wood, everything's like slowing down and like coming full circle. It's like, everything's great now. But yeah, it was awful chapters.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't want to. Everybody's like, you should write a book. I'm like, I don't really want to.
I don't want to live there.
Yeah.
I get it. And
Yeah.
it's painful sometimes to relive it. When I had to talk, when I was doing my episode about me, some stuff I was like, I hadn't thought about this in years, or I forgot. And I jumped around in my story some because I was like, goodness gracious, the way that our mind tricks us and we
To
just bury
forget.
that trauma is very powerful.
Yeah, it is. It's a little frightening.
Yes.
I know
It
people
is.
tell me memories. I'm like, I understand I was there, but I do not recall this
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll look at, I was doing something. I think I was going through an old computer and I saw pictures and I was like, I know that I'm there, but I do not remember. Like, I couldn't tell you anything about that moment.
Yeah.
Like, people could have photoshopped that and I'd have been like, yeah, you did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Seriously.
I know. I only have like 5 pictures of my mom because she hated like her pictures being taken. So like sometimes I'm like, was she real?
Mm-hmm.
Like, like I'm almost at that point in my life where she's been gone longer than she was in it. So I'm like, did I dream this? Like, it almost feels like I dreamed it. Like,
Yeah.
it's not real. Like, and then sometimes I have a hard time like grasping like reality. Like, yes, Casey, she was real. Like, you're not losing your mind. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's like it seems so long ago that, but it's like such an impact. Like, it really changed like who we were. Like,
Mhm.
you know, like I was, you know, on the tennis team. I was doing AP classes. Like, the goal was to be a doctor. And then like my life changed in a matter of a day. And I hated her for such a long time. Like, I had such hatred for my mom because she was not honest with us. She was dying. She should have told us. Like, we were almost adults, but you knew you were dying and you didn't tell us. So you decided that leaving us alone was the best option instead of telling us and preparing us. Like, I had a lot of hatred for that for a long time.
Yeah. And that's valid. You're allowed to feel whatever
Absolutely.
emotions come up at that point when you're grieving.
Yeah. But I understand, like, looking back, like, my mom did the best that she could with the situation that she had. Like, maybe she wanted to keep our childhood intact for as long as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe she thought she had more time than she did. Maybe she, you know, didn't know what was happening to her. Like there's a lot of like what ifs and stuff. But I try to think like she did the best that she could with what she had.
Yeah, for sure. And it sounds like, just going back to when you were first told you were pregnant and hearing about your doctor, I'm like, I don't know what small town this was, but maybe her doctors, maybe she didn't have resources to help her deliver the news to her kids and how to help her family cope in her passing.
Yeah.
And
Well,
how for you guys to watch her actively die.
Yeah. Well, so he was my doctor whenever I was little. And so I knew that my mom had asked him, like, if something happens to me, make sure they're taken care of. And I feel like I want to see the good intentions in everyone. So I think that maybe that was his way of trying to take care of me, because he knew, like, this could hinder me. But, like, I think that having Aiden only helped me grow, because he pulled me out of a darkness that I was in. So, like, he's my little shining light.
Yeah. It all happens for a reason.
It really does. Yeah. And I'm glad that I had him young, because then I can have more of my life with him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he'll have me for like most of his life. Like, we'll be little old lady and men together. We'll be knitting together.
For sure.
Well,
And now you're financially in a place to where you can provide for him and give him the world.
Yeah.
And that's incredible.
Yeah.
that's really cool.
So like he's my why. Like, in real estate, they're like, well, what's
Yes.
your why?
What's
Like,
your
why
why?
do you do what
Yeah.
you do? Like, it's because of Aiden. Like,
Yeah.
I could not go work an office job. Because, like, sometimes the school calls and like, well, he's having a hard day. Can you come pick him up? Like, and we were in middle school now, and that was a really hard adjustment. Like, they didn't read his IEP. They didn't know, like, he could write his name or, like, do math. I'm like, did anybody read this? Like, what's happening? So, like, still people take me for granted because of my age. They don't take me seriously because of my age. I'm like, I know I'm a young mom, but I'm going to come after you harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not even that young of a mom. My sisters had their first kids at 20 and 19. I feel like that's young, in your 30s. It doesn't matter your age. You should give respect, first of all.
I
But
think people think that Aiden is Jeremy's kid because Jeremy's older than me.
Mhm.
And then my stepkids look like me a little bit because of blonde hair.
Yeah.
And so, everyone thinks that Aiden's Jeremy's because of the age. I'm like, no, he's mine. And everybody thought I was older than I am because I had a child. Like, oh, you're like 35,
Yeah.
right? I'm like, I'm
assumptions.
28, but thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The eye rolls.
I know.
People.
So many of
Foot
them.
Like,
and mouth every time.
Rude.
Yes.
Like, do I need to get my Botox done?
No, you look good. You look good. You look good. People are, I always say, people are peopling today.
Yes.
When I don't want to say anything mean, they're just being people. Don't know what was put in their coffee, their Cheerios.
Or it's two people outside.
Yes, two people. I want to be around my people.
It's two people outside. I can't deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm an introvert with an extroverted switch. So it's like you can switch it on when you want it to, but then you really just, want to.
Yeah. People drain me. And it's so funny. Of course, I'm a real estate agent and I'm great at my job.
Yeah,
When I'm
for sure.
on, I'm on. And
Yeah.
when the switch goes off, my husband is like, people take you seriously. You're the goofiest. You say the dumbest stuff. And I'm like, because I'm completely off now. My brain has been on all day. And
Yeah.
I really prefer to sit in my house, drink my little mocktails, watch The Greatest Showman, and I don't have to talk to anybody all weekend. Like, I could do that and just be perfectly happy in my own little bubble.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah. So us introverts having to live in an extroverted world gets very daunting.
Oh, we have an event. I'm like, Jeremy, you're coming right because he's an extrovert naturally. I'm like, I'm not feeling very extroverted. Can you like go and talk to people?
Yeah. So is my husband, and it's a great balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll joke a lot. They're like, "Oh, you're going to so and so's happy hour," and I'm like, "Do you know me?" It's like, I may be extroverted online, but I'm at home a lot of times in my bonnet, posting from my couch.
Everyone's like, are you coming to this event? I'm like, no.
No.
I love you though, but no.
Because we'd rather be with our families.
Yeah.
And
Probably not going to be there.
Yeah. We all have boys, and I'm like, I would much rather stay at home and spend time with MJ.
Yeah, I'm like, if you need alone clothes, you call me. But I'm gonna be like in my house in my sweats with my hair looking like a rat's nest.
Yeah,
It's fine.
exactly. Well, Casey, we've enjoyed getting to know you a little bit more. So we've
Yeah.
punched out about 60 minutes of that 7-hour rule that you educated us on. I guess before we wrap it up, could you share with our listeners what kept you grounded? I know your mom's wish for you to go to college, and yet what did you return to when things got hard and dark?
I mean, honestly, I'm the only person this little boy has in his entire world. I cannot fail because he has no one else. That's what I go back to constantly. He has no one else. It's just me.
We talked about this earlier this week.
We did.
You don't have a plan B because then you're intending for plan A. How did you say it? You're so much better at words, Gentry. Go ahead.
I don't know about that.
Just
What
tell
was
the
I
people.
talking about?
Because we were talking about when people have backup plans, they're planning to fail or something you said. And I was like, we can just write down every time you speak.
I don't know.
That's a good point, though.
I don't know.
There's no plan B because plan A can't fail.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's like putting faith in what you want. Like you honor what you attract, like what you focus on expands, right?
Yeah.
So if you like, we spend, someone says like this, our greatest superpower as a human is expectation, because whatever is in our future, if it's good or if it's bad, we've made it up.
Yeah.
Like, so why not take, like, instead of focusing on like what's not, like what we don't want to happen, let's take the energy and focus on what we do want to happen. I don't remember his name, but he wrote a book. So let's just say that.
He wrote a book, yeah.
I don't remember his name, but
That one guy.
yeah, that guy has a name, you know, and probably initials after his name, whatever. But he says, like, stop calling it your subconscious, because your subconscious is actually not your subconscious, because sub means below. So if you're subconscious, it's like your natural way of life, your natural operating system, the same system that processes you when you're sleeping. It tells you to breathe, and it tells you to exhale, and then it wakes you up when you need to be up, and it puts you down. Like that is who you are. Like that is your operating system. So like your operating system says one thing, so that's actually more powerful. So we don't say that it's sub, we say that it's non, because we can be non-conscious or unconscious, but it's not subconscious. So I thought that was really powerful, like for my life, because I never like, it's like, oh yeah, my subconscious, but it's like, it's not your subconscious. It's actually more powerful than your conscious, because it keeps you awake it keeps you alive when you're asleep.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm trying to think, I lost my train of thought.
No, you're fine. Yeah.
So
there's just power in just being so hell bent on.
Yeah. So it's like, why do we take our expectation on, things that you don't want to happen, like, and you make it happen? But there's a thing is in the books, because your non-conscious can't take a joke. That's why don't say I want to get out of debt, because your non-conscious says debt.
Yeah.
So you're always focusing on debt. So it's like you get out of debt, but then what happens? All it says is debt. So you get into more debt. And I know that there's like other things around it, but it's like at the simplest core, it's your non-conscious can't take a joke. So it's like when you say, I really enjoyed going to Disney World, like, even though, like, if you may have been planning a trip to Disney World, but in your non-conscious, you've already been to Disney World because you've enjoyed, like, and when you enjoy, it's like gratitude, gratefulness. There's a lot of explanations, but there's a lot of explaining to do. It would take a very long time, but, and I'm not really qualified to do all that. But it's like, so it's like it puts you already there. And so when you focus on that, when you're non-conscious focus on that, when you're more focused on like the experience or the feeling or the memories that you would make. Like, so for me, Callan was really, really, my oldest, really, really into cars, love Lightning McQueen. And like when we found out like that they have like a whole Radiator Springs in one of the Disneys, like they have the mountain, they have the waterfall, they have the cars that you can get in. And I'm like, he would flip out.
Like MJ's birthday party next week is
like
cars theme.
Cars, yes, yeah.
Beep, beeps. Oh my gosh, that's where we're at right now.
Yeah. So, anyways, so it's like when you put that on focus, like you're non-conscious, like you experience those memories in your mind, and you're like, this is going to be so awesome. You get that that joyful anticipation, and so that you take your expectation and your anticipation, and you actually put it forward to materialize something. So you do what it takes to make what you're focused on happen. So the same thing goes for negativity. If you focus on something that you don't want, like if you don't want, like, have you ever been in a car and you're like, just have a feeling like something's going to go wrong or run out of gas. You're like, don't run out of gas, don't run out of gas. And then like you get 10 phone calls and then something happens and you're screaming. And then all of a sudden, like, it's like, you're like, I was supposed to get gas. But it prevents you, when you focus on something that you don't want to happen, it prevents you from doing the things to prevent it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
We often attract what we think about. We bring it about, whether it's unconscious a lot of times, like you were saying.
Yeah.
But you going out and being a barrier breaker and pushing through, graduating, having a job now to where you can support your child.
yeah.
It's all because it started in your mind and you were verbal about your intentions.
Oh, I believe in like verbally manifesting.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like if it's been a minute since I got a contract, I'm like, I'm getting a contract this week.
Yep.
This week. Fold laundry, I'm getting a contract this week. The contract
Yeah.
pops up. I'm like,
Yep.
I really believe that you can self-manifest what you want.
Mm-hmm. Because you're focusing on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hope
That-
you guys that are listening are writing down some of these tips from Casey, because it's just, I followed you on social media, and you never know what people are going through and their why. So just hearing it just makes it all make more sense. I'm like, she's a mom like me hustling because there is no plan B.
There, yeah.
Like Aiden's not going to grow up and move out one day. Like he's here to stay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the idea, like one day he's going to end up in like a group home, or like, what's the residence, like where you put people with disabilities, like I can't think of what it's called, but like that's where he'll probably end up one day. And like that's so hard for me to like understand. Like you're a Peloton mom too. Like
Yeah.
I'm not working out for a fit body. I'm working out so I can live a long time.
Literally.
Because I cannot die. Like that, I tell myself I cannot
Yeah.
die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we have plans. We have the life insurance.
Yeah.
I used to sell life insurance, and when Malcolm was born, I went to overdrive. I was like, okay, my term is now whole life. Thank goodness I converted it the month that I did before I was diagnosed. And so my husband got more insurance. MJ has a 15-pay policy. Like there is no plan B. And yet if I'm removed, I want to make sure that life is not totally disrupted for my child.
But that's not plan B.
Yeah, that's not plan B.
There's no plan B.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like even though something
Could.
even though like there is a instance where this could be a reality, it's not plan B, because plan A has been to make sure that the questions are answered before they're asked.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I have my
please,
days.
friends, you have your days. Yeah.
Oh.
Well, Casey, thank you for spending time with us
Thank you.
today.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
being here.
Yeah. I applaud you in every way and understand so much about being a black sheep in reverse, which is crazy because I lived my life feeling the same way.
Yeah. I think it's
Truly.
more common than we think.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that I get to meet other black sheep and their families as well. And thank you guys for listening. This
Yeah,
has
for
been
sure.
Barrier Breakers.